So we're at the Mishnah on Daf Gimel Amud Aleph. Last, the second Mishnah. If Adam came and said that Ruvain owes Shimon 1,000 zuz, and Ruvain owes this money to Shimon within 30 days. There's a 30-day term on the loan. And Shimon says, no, hold on. It's true, I owe Ruvain money, but I don't have to pay him back in 30 days. I have to pay him back in 10 years. The term of the loan is 10 years. So if those Edim turn out to be the Edim that were falsely claiming that Ruvain owed the money in 30 days as opposed to owing the money in 10 years, those Edim have to pay Kasher Zama. They don't pay, let's say it was $100, they wouldn't have to pay $100. Let's say, if it was a 7%, person would normally pay 5% a year in order to not have to pay basically interest. If a person would pay to get the use of $100 for a year, he'd pay 5%. So he'd have to pay the difference a little bit less than 10 times 5% or 50%. You'd have to essentially pay the interest. You'd have to pay the amount that someone would pay to have the right to use money for that amount of time. Now, it's not ribbis, right?
That's what I'm thinking.
It's not ribbis because you're paying, it's the Eid Zaymim who's paying because that's what he tried to take away from Reuben.
It's the value he's trying to take away.
So the way you value it is by ribbis, but there's no ribbis here. I mean, there was never any ribbis on the loan, but he was taking away that value from Reuben. These items, by saying you got to pay it back right now instead of waiting 10 years, are taking away the time value of money. Obviously, there's no isser of ribbis that the Eid Zaymim doesn't have to pay because it's ribbis. Even though the Torah says you're not allowed to charge ribbis, but the person who gets to borrow money enjoys the money. He's getting the enjoyment of the ribbis. It's almost like one way to look at it is the Eid Zaymim was trying to deprive the borrower of an interest-free loan. You got an interest-free loan, and because every loan is officially an interest-free loan, you're not allowed to charge ribbis, so he has to pay him the value of how much an interest-free loan is worth. Dr. Gemara. Amar Yudam Shmuel. Hamabas chaver le'eser shanim shvius misham tasa. Someone who makes a loan with a 10-year term, shvius is going to stop it from coming into effect. That means when at some point in those 10 years you're going to hit a shmita, and shmita makes it that any loan that was entered into is no longer collectible. The Torah says, oh, we don't have the puzzle.
You don't have a puzzle?
Oh, we're going to get, the Gemara is going to get to that in a minute. Right, the Torah says, Lo Yigash. Even though when Shvius comes, it's not even though it's currently not Layigash, but in the end it's going to come to Layigash, and therefore Shvius is going to be Meshamet. Shvius is going to stop it. So it's not an enforceable loan. Masar of Kahana. Our Mishnah had said that the Edim have to pay the difference between a 30-day loan, which was not true, which is not the MS, and the 10-year loan, which was the MS. They shouldn't have to just pay the time value of money of the difference between 30 days and 10 years. A 10-year loan is essentially a gift because it's always going to be Shemitah in the middle. So the lender is never going to be able to get his money back. So instead of like the case we said, where he just has to pay the 5% a year that he took away, that Reuven was entitled to keep the money for 10 years, Reuven was entitled to keep the money permanently, because Shemitah was going to come and make it that the Shimon could never take away, could never be given the money, could never claim his money back. Amravach, Maiskin and Malva Mashkin, we're either talking about where there was a mashkin, there was collateral, which we know that if there's a mashkin, then there's no lo yigash. That means the way the Torah phrases the isser of the din of hashmata, that shvius makes that you can't collect a loan, is the Torah says lo yigash. You can't press him for the loan. So it's only in a case with his pressing where you're going to go and where the borrower, the lender is going to go and claim his loan and he's going to push him to pay his loan. But if there's a mashkin, then he doesn't have to do anything. The mashkin works for him. If the guy is not going to pay him, then he's going to get the mashkin. So a mashkin is excluded from the din that Shemitah is Meshamet. Or secondly, with Moisish Toraisa Lebezin, or if he made a pruzbul, right? The way a pruzbul works is that you give over your stars to Bezin, and then again, you're not the one pressing for your star. You really, Bezdin is the one thing Meshamet. Now, even though you are actually the one who's going to go ask him for it, but you're just a shliach of Bezdin, it's not treated as lo yigash. The Tana, Maval Hamashma Moisish Toraisa Lebezin, Ein Mashmitin. So that's going to be the case. So therefore, our Mishnah is not a kasha on this din, on the shita that said that shvius is meshamet. Ikad Amri, Amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel Hamavas Chaver LeEsher Shanim Ein shvius meshamet asay. According to this pshat, Yehuda Amar Shmuel says that no, this whole din that shvius is meshamet just means that during shvius itself you can't go and ask for your money, but once Shemitah is over, you can go back. So the novel theory of Hashmata. So he says, even though eventually, after Shemitah is over, it's going to eventually be lo yigash. He's going to have to ask for his money. But in the meantime, there's no lo yigash. So therefore, Shvius is not meshamet. Amar Rav Kahana and Avanan na mitznina. Rav Kahana says, we also learned this in the Mishnah. Now the Gemara is now said that we just had Yehuda Amar. He just said the Shita exactly the opposite. So now we're bringing Amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel. So we're bringing our Mishnah as a raya, since he's saying that Shvius is not Meshamet if the term extends past Shemitah. So our Mishnah seems to be right, because our Mishnah says then he should have to pay the whole thing. Again, the same teretz, it's just going to be that now we're saying it to obviate the raya, we're slugging up the raya, as opposed to before we're slugging up the kasha. There's not a malva name Shabbat. I'm the Meshmuel. Another word from Rabbi Yehuda Meshmuel. If someone makes a loan, it's 2 years before Shemitah, and it's a 5-year loan, and he says to him, I'm making the loan, but it's on condition that Shemitah is not going to stop it from me being able to collect my loan. Shvius is nevertheless, in spite of what he said, you can't stop the train.
Don't we have this and also not al hatoya?
Lema Kasav Shmuel Masna Masha Kasa B'Tayrahu, Chala Masna Masha Kasa B'Tayra Tanai Batel. So there's a little bit of nuance to this. That everyone knows that it's true. Everyone agrees that Masna Masha Kasa B'Tayra is Tanai Batel. So what is even the question here? And the question here really is, although it's certainly the case, you can't be Masna Masha. You can't say I'm buying this meat. And I'm being master, and I'm only buying in a condition that I can eat it, even though it's treif, even though it's chazer. Certainly, you can't do such a thing. But maybe money is different, because when I lend you money, I'm saying, listen, really, shvius, I'm lending you money. Really, shvius should be meshameset. but I'm only lending it to you on the condition that you're giving up your right to say that to claim that Shvius was Masham. Right? You could always be Meichel. So maybe you could be Meichel on this monetary right that you have, that you could say that Shvius is Masham. You could always contract on monetary matters. So maybe you could even contract on something that's connected what the Torah would have said is the default rule. But Shmuel is saying, no, you can't even do that. Even that, Yamasna Mashka, the Torah said that Shvius is Meshamet, so you can't make an agreement. That's Mashal Mashka Kasav Torah if you're saying Shvius is not Meshamet. And we're going to see in the end that even Rav Yehuda Shmuel agrees that you can contract around it, just in specific circumstances that you can. When it says we seem to come to a conclusion exactly the opposite. That Shmuel says there is no Aina. That if someone made a Tnai, I'm selling you this house, and a house probably not a good example. I'm selling you the Stender, and the Stender is normally $100. I'm selling it to you $150. So really, I'm not allowed to do that. So I know, and I'm going to have to maybe have Mekach Toyes. If it's more than a 6, I'll have to return the Aina. If it's exactly a 6, he says, listen, I'm telling you right now, it's Aina. It's more than the amount. And if you want it, you could take it, and you have to agree that there's no Aina. So Rav says, it doesn't make a difference that you made it tonight, it's still Aina. But Shmuel says, there's nothing he can't complain. Since the person waived his rights, he waived his right to Aina, it's gone. So Shmuel, we have Rav Yehuda Shmuel said, Legabi Shmita, that it's Masa Masha Kasa B'Torah, even though it's a monetary it's a monetary issue where he's being Masa Masha Kasa B'Torah. And Legabi Aina, he said, it's not Masna Masha Kasa B'Torah. You're able to make such a waiver. The way I had heard it, B'Shem Shmuel, Al Menashe ein l'cha alaya no ein lo yalav no. Al Menashe ein boya no hariyesh boya. It all depends. One says it's a very subtle distinction. Depends on how it's phrased. Ein chanami, you could make a waiver, and you could say, as far as I'm concerned, I want you to waive your rights of Aina. And if you say it like that, if you say if you can't apply Aina to me, then there's taka no Aina. You can make a Tanai to take it out, and therefore the person is being meichel on his rights. She'ein boy enough, but you say that there is no Aina in this. That's a masla masha kasa b'Torah. That you can't do, even though it's monetary. If you're trying to say that there is no Aina doesn't exist here, that's masla masha kasa b'Torah. That you can't do.
I know it's not hate. I don't know.
It's what?
It's not hate. It's not another.
Right, exactly. Or right, well, it's not really the chavetz adam. It's whether it's in this particular case, it's on me, right? I'm being meichel my right, or am I trying to say on the rule? It's a question: is it the gavra or on the rule of Aina? I'm being master. The rule of Aina doesn't exist here.
Shame, but I know.
Shame, but there's no Aina.
The cloud.
Well,
or in this object.
Yeah. Okay, so you could say that you want to say it's the gavra, it's the chefza. I'm looking at ein boy, right?
Boys and it.
Right, but obviously it can't be Michael. Okay. So it's.
Not saying ein boy the cloud is no. That obviously can't.
Yeah, but we're saying ein boy no doesn't work. We're saying it's masa matzah b'Torah.
But what does boy mean?
I'm looking at it the other way around. When you say it on the person, then the person could be Michael. But you say she'ein boy no, that there is no Aina.
It's general.
That's masa masha kazutera, because there is Aina. You can only make it that a person is Michael. You can't make it that there's just no Aina. That's the way I see it.
If you say can you say instead of she'ein loch a liar no, say she'ein loch a liar no, but let's say.
Yeah, because then you're just identifying. Let's see Rashi how Rashi puts it, because it's taka so. You can't be masna. He's not being masna that he should be moichel. He's saying there's no aina in this mecha. But we know that there is aina. The Torah said there is aina. So that's what we're up to. It's more focused. The chayfetz is not really the point. I'm saying the point is he's just saying an untrue statement, saying she'ein b'ayina. Whether he's being toilet in the chayfetz or whether he's being toilet in the day of the week, she'ein hayayim ayina. That also wouldn't work. But if he says she'ein loya love ayina, he's saying you have to be Michael. Michael, Mechil, there is such a thing. Could always be Michael. So Hachanami, let's continue in the Gemara. If he says that Shmiyas should not be Meshamet, so Shmiyas should not be Meshamet to me or to you, you're going to be Michael, then Shmiyas is not going to be Meshamet. Amanasha loitish meteni Shmiyas. But if he just says that Shvius is not Meshamet, Shvius Mesham Tasei, that is Masna Masha Kasabatai. Tana, Hamal Veschaveris Stam. Someone who makes loans someone money, says Reuben says to Shimon, lend me $100, and Shimon gives him $100. Then Shimon can't go to get his money for 30 days. This is only if Shimon wrote a star for the money. It was only for a week, he wouldn't have bothered with a star. So we can make a umdina that if you wrote a star, it's the minimum is 30 days. He wouldn't write a star for less than that, and that's all he's entitled to. But if there was no star at all, then there's no, we don't know what the default is. So he can keep it indefinitely. Amalei Rav, Hachi Amechavivi, I don't know, what does it mean? I don't know if it means he can keep it indefinitely or he can come get it from him right away. I think it means he can come ask for it right away. Amalei Rav, Hachi Amechavivi, he said, Rav said he heard that it's Rav Chia, that he said he heard from Rav Chia that this applies to a milva al peh as well, that it's also going to be, a default is going to be 30 days. You have a brayso that says the same thing. I don't want you to stand up until you explain to me this. We gave a reason why a melva b'shtar, why it should be 30 days, because that's a person wouldn't go to the effort of making a star unless it's 30 days. But someone who's malva peh, where does it come from that that standard he can't ask for the money for 30 days? Torah says that the year of the seventh year is coming, the year of the Shemitah, when the loan is going to be undone. It's going to be, he's not going to be able to be Taveya loans. Since it says the seventh year is coming, we know that it's the seventh year is the Shemitah. What is the Torah saying? Redundant, the second mashmayis of the year of Shemitah. There is another Shemitah, there's another time when you're not able to ask for your money, similar to the seventh year. That's someone who lends his friend without saying a time. That just like Shemitah, you can't ask for your money. During the 30 days after you borrowed money, you can't ask for the money. And where does the Gemara says? We said Shnasa Shemitah. It's a year of a loan. If for a year you can't ask loan, so why don't you say that a standard loan, a milval pay, you have to wait a year before you could ask, because you're learning it out from it says Shnas Shmita. The Amar Mar Shloshim Yom B'Shana Chashuv Shana, because he says, like we see in a different context, that 30 days of the year is considered a year. Lagabe, it's talking Lagabe being Gaiva, your, I forgot exactly what it is, but it's, you can clear. And we don't have a Rashi on it. It's a Kriya Shana. But we find that 30 days is called a year. That a portion of 30 days, a portion of a year is called a year. So that's why we say 30 days. HaPaisach Beis Hatzava. This is not really relevant, but it's Rabbi Yehuda Marav. HaPaisach Beis Hatzava b'Shavas Chayiv Chatas. If someone has a cloth, it's like a rectangular piece of cloth, and he cuts out a hole in the middle. I could use it as a poncho now. He opened up a hole for his neck. He's chayiv chatas because he was misakin kli. He's a makah b'patas. He completed the kli. Matzka floor of kahana, frector of kahana, b'chima ben zela magoyfes chaves. How is this different from the rule that you could knock off the top of a bottle if you have a covered barrel? You can knock off the cover off the barrel, even though by that you're making the rest of the barrel usable. You're opening it up. No, there's a big distinction. A barrel is put together, and then after you make the barrel, you put a cover on it. And this guy knocked off the part with the cover, so it was already constituted as a barrel, as two separate things, and they were just attached. And now you're disattaching what was previously attached. Mashayin Kain, when you have a piece of cloth, you cut a hole in the middle. That's from you're making a brand new thing. That's Masakin Man. Obviously, this is very negeya to the issue of the soda bottles, right?
This why was so with the issue
Yeah, because I don't remember. I'm sure you could ask Rabbi Twersky. He would know the halacha. I mean, could be we don't pass on like this. The meaning per chavis is the mate is roish b'shabbos saif l'chus chavis. Yeah. Maske floor of kahana. L'chima ben ze. Yeah. Okay. Amar Rav Yehuda Amarav. Shloishes lugen mayim shenaf l'toich kortov shel yain. This is going to sound a little far out because it's not something we're familiar with. But the din is you have to have 40 saw of mayim in a mikvah. It has to be mayim that wasn't in a kli. It has to be mayim that came straight from rain, straight into the mikvah without going into a kli. The rule is if you have less than 40 saw, if you have 40 saw missing 3 lugan, and you add to it 3 lugan of mayim she'uvim, which is a small amount, right? 40 saw you have 40 saw minus 3 lugan, and you add 3 lugan of mayim she'uvim, that will passel the mikvah. And then even if you add more mayim that is kosher, it's already possible. Now, this is different. It's a distinction. If it would be more than 40 saw already in the mikvah, then the mayim shuvin doesn't passel. It's just talking about if it's less than 40 saw, then the mayim shuvin passels the water that's already in the mikvah.
No amount is going to passel it.
Sorry?
If it's already 40, no amount is going to passel it.
I don't think so. You have to empty it out and refill it. So, now this is only mayim. It doesn't. If something else, if milk or wine or some other liquid came in, that of three lugan, that would not passel the 39 saw. It has to be just mayim she'uvim, water that was in a kli. So what happens? Shloisha lugan mayim. You have 3 lugan of mayim. Shenach l'soichen kurtav yain. And a little tiny bit of wine came in it, and now all 3 lugan look like wine. And then that whole mixture that looks like wine, it's really water, but it looks like wine. Like paslu, it's not going to passel it, because since the wine made it look like wine, made that water look like wine. It doesn't have the status of water that could Maim She'uvim that patals the mikveh. Rather, it's considered like wine that doesn't patal the mikveh. Maskal Rav Kahana b'chima bein zel lemeit seva. Why is this different than colored water? The time of Yossi made seva paisel some mikveh b'shloisha lugin. That if you have colored water, you put a little bit of food coloring into water, it still passes the mikveh. Amalei Rava also Maim the tzava mikri. If you have colored water, it's called colored water. It's water that's colored. But if you have wine, it's considered very diluted wine. So it won't pass on the mikveh because you have wine that's very diluted. As long as it has the color of wine, it's treated as diluted wine. In fact, the I read us a mikveh. We have a brisa from B'Shem Reb Chia that he says that if you put in water that's colored by wine, it does make the mikveh pasul. If you have shlosh lugin of mayim with a little bit of wine in it, and it looks like wine, that it makes the mikveh pasul. So we have a stira. Amarava lekasha harveichem anuri harvarabanan. That brisa b'shem Reb Chia that says that it passes the mikveh, that's going to be like the rabbanan, and Rabbi Yehuda Amarav that says it doesn't pasul is like Rabbi Yechim. It's not. Over here, it's a slightly different case in this brisa. It says if you have 3 lugan of mayim, but it doesn't. It's a little less than 3 lugan of mayim. And then a little bit of wine fell into it. And now it appears like wine. And it fell into the mikvah. It doesn't pasul. Now this is mashma. It's only because it started out as a little less than 3 lugan of mayim. You don't actually have 3 lugan of mayim. You only have 3 lugan chaser kurtam. Now 3 lugan is not enough to pasul mikvah. You have to have 3 lugan. That's the minimum amount. So it's only because it was a little bit less. But if it would have had all 3, then it would have pasuled in spite of the fact that it had wine in it that's kamari yain. And certainly in a case we had 3 lugan of mayim, which is and a little less than a kurtav, and then milk fell in it. And milk doesn't discolor as much as wine. It's much less colorful. So it remained with it still looks like water, and that's also not going to pass. Because in spite of the fact that now it looks like it's water, but still you don't have 3 lugan of mayim. You just have 3 lugan minus a kurtav. In spite of the fact that it's also marei and kamari mayim, it's still not going to pass. That's the Tanakama. So you see the Tanakama holds that, however, had there not been a chaser kurtav on the first case, then it would have been possible. Benuri disagrees, and he says no. It's going to all depend on what it looks like. So even if it was shlosh lugan, if wine fell into it and it looks like wine, it's going to be treated as wine that it doesn't pass on the mikvah with 3 lugan. Now you're saying that these shitas of Yehuda Amarav and the shita of Rav Chia, the Brisa of Rav Chia, represent these 2 shitas of the Tanaim. Frak the Gemara. Rav Papa had this question. The Rav Papa Rav Tani Chasa Kuta Bereisha Ava Shloisha Lugan L'Tanakama Pasli. Do we have the brisa the way it was just brought b'shem Rav Chia, that it says in the first part of the brisa when it's talking about the yayin that fell into the mayim? Do we have a girsa that includes, like we saw with chaser kortov, and therefore the Rabbanan are saying not like Rabbi Yehuda Amarav, but shlosh lugin l'tanakama pasli, which is the mashmayis, that the Tanakama would hold that if there were shlosh lugin would be pasul, and therefore it can't be like. And then Rabbi Yechim Nuri, who disagrees, is saying it all goes after the Mara. And then we have to say that Rav says like Rabbi Yechim, like we had said. Oidelma, Rav Papa said maybe there's a way to answer to say that brisa comes out both. Rav loy tani chaser korta bereisha. Maybe Rav does not have the girsa of chaser kurtav in the first din that we said in that brisa or that Mishnah. That shloish lugamayim shenafalu toichan kurtav yayin, and it doesn't have the girsa of chaser kurtav. So therefore, the Rabbanan are saying it's not going to passel, and it's saying even if it's maramayim v'nafal mikvaloi paslua, if you have 3 lugan of water, I'm sorry, then the second din would say chaser kurtav. The second din of the Mishnah of mayim of cholav and mayim was saying according to Rabbanan, there are one of 2 ways that it could not passel the mikvah. Either it goes, it's not going to be passel in the first case because it's mara kamara yain, even though it's 3 lugan. Or the second case, the only reason why if milk fell into it is because it's less than 3 lugan mayim. If it would be 3 lugan mayim and then milk fell in it, it still looks like mayim, it clearly would be passel. But saying over there it's missing. And then Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is coming to argue hakol oil chacha amara, that no, even in the case of the yayin, even though it was less than, it doesn't have to be that it was chaser kurtav. Even if it's not chaser kurtav, even if it's not chaser kurtav, it would still be possible. It would still not possible. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri keep calling us seifu. I'm sorry. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is only arguing on the second case. It means Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri would be maskim in the case of where it's not chaser kurtav, because over there it's marayin kamarayin. But he's arguing on the second case that you say that if it's chaser kurtav, it's the maya, the chalav that fell into the water is going to passel, and he's going to say no. Even he's saying it's enough of the mikvah loy paslua. He's going to say it is passel because even though it was less than a kurtav, it's missing a kurtav. As long as now you have 3 lugan and it looks like water, it's going to passel. And according to this, Rav says like both Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and the Tanakama. So Rav Papa had this question of whether you could be gyrus without the chaser kurtav in the ratio of the Mishnah. But Rav certainly had that girsa, so he doesn't have this question. Amar Rav Yosef, lo shmiya lehashmaitza. Rav Yosef says, I never heard this. Amle abayat, amanaland, vachi amanaland. The Rav leitani chaser kurtav bereisha. Rav Yochanan seifa palin. Rav the Amar kedivrei akal. So Abaye said to him, Rabbi said to Rabbi Yosef, I think Rabbi Yosef was blind, and Rashi says, Am Rabbi Yosef lo shmi shmitza. Talmid shel Rabbi Yehuda ani v'lo shamati mipiv shmuzu damar le'ab shmi gimel l'mayim shepatzon. Am Rabbi Yosef chalav v'shachach talmudei haya. Abaye maskir masha kibel him. And Rabbi Yosef was older, and he didn't remember so well what he had learned, so Abaye was reminding him that you had said that Rav is saying Kedevrei HaKoil like Rav Papa had suggested. Amar Yudam Rav. A barrel full of water that fell into the sea. Someone who's tayvel there, his tefillah is not going to work, because we're going to say that when he leaves the mikvah, even though he's tayvel, obviously the yam is a good mikvah, but because the water that the mayim she'uvim, this chavetz alei mayim, this mayim she'uvim, remains concentrated in this place. So when he leaves, he's going to touch that mayim she'uvim, and there's a takanas chachamim that if you toivel in mayim she'uvim, after you toivel in a regular mikvah, that passes you. But the rabbanon, there'll be a certain psul. They were guys that we don't want people to think that the second tefillah was the one that helped. That's only the yamagadol that's very still. But if it's a regular river that's flowing, then the water would get dispersed. If you have a barrel full of wine, that fell into the yamagadol. The person who's toivel there, his tefillah is not going to work. We're concerned that the shlosh lugan shuvim will be in one place. So the same thing, this yayin will remain there, and it will make it that it's not going to be a full. It's a yeah. Yeah, that they were worried that maybe that yayin stayed in one place and he was toivel in that yayin, and therefore was not a valid tefillah.
Where's the turbine? It's turbine in the barrel. That's
The barrel, not the barrel there. It's not in the barrel. They dumped the barrel into the water, but we believe that the yayin remains concentrated in that one place. So we're concerned that maybe it was toivel in the yayin as opposed to being in 40 lugan of mayim.
so even though he's turbulent in the yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And if after it was toivel in this yayin in the Yam HaGadol, if there's a kikar of truma, he has a piece of truma that fell shenafel sham, it fell into that place. Tame, it becomes tame because this guy who was tame, he touched the wine, and he didn't become tar, so the wine also became tame. My v'chein ma'odem hosem uki gavra cheskatze hacha uki truma acheska. Maybe I might say that the person maybe he remains tummy because he was tummy before, but maybe the truma we wouldn't say we have to be chayshish that the yain all stayed in one place because the truma before was tar, it remains with it chazak. The kamashmal and that no, that it does become tummy, the yain becomes tummy, and therefore the truma becomes tummy.